Have you ever found yourself saying, now that's a good question? Usually it's when somebody asks us something we're not quite ready to answer. We need to think about it. We need to pause for a moment. We're feeling a little insecure. And we're like, oh, boy, I don't know what to say to that. I'm a pastor and I don't know it all. And I get those questions and I go, wow, that's a really good question. I've learned actually to say, that be okay with that, to say, that's a great question. And then I say, why don't you study on that and let me know next week? Because sometimes we ask questions because we're lazy, but most of the time we ask questions, they're for good reasons. We want to know. And so I might say to somebody, wow, that's a good question. Can I work on that and get back to you? Because this is worthy of research. It's worthy of thought. It's worthy of pausing, right? It's okay to say, not have a quick answer. I know I'm the king of the quick answer. That's not necessarily the right one because I love to talk. So I need to learn to pause and say, that's a great question. Let's research that together. Or let's look that up together. Or do you want to study the Bible together with me and we can find that answer? That's a great answer, by the way, if people ask you that. Hey, why don't we look into that together? Great. So we're going to be talking about wisdom for your pathway. So all of us are on a path. You may not think of yourself as on a path. You think, oh, I'm on a journey. I've been somewhere here. Yeah. Often if I'm talking to somebody about their faith journey, I'll say to them, their faith, I'll say, hey, in your spiritual journey, let's say you were traveling from Mirror to Banff. Ann and I actually spent a few days in Banff at a small church connections conference. And we started out of Mirror and made our way, but we went through various communities, right, to get to Banff, including a major city around it. And so I'll ask people, hey, where are you in your spiritual journey? If you started out in Mirror and you're headed to Banff, where would you say, where would you place yourself on your spiritual journey? Like, here's the map, put an X maybe. And when I ask people that, some people will say, yeah, I'm kind of in the parking lot in Mirror. I started my journey, but haven't gotten very far. Or other people say, oh, no, I'm probably on the Stony Trail 201 around Calgary, so I'm making my way. Other people say, wow, I've never even thought about that. Other people say, yeah, I'm about halfway, or they'll say, I didn't even know it was a spiritual journey. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought you just went from A to B, and I didn't know there was anything in between. I said, yeah, you're on a spiritual journey. We all are. And so we let people, and I let you say, well, this is kind of where I'm at in my spiritual journey. Now, whether it's accurate or not is irrelevant to me. I just want to know what people have been thinking about their journey. That's why I usually ask that question. It's a good question. Where are you in your spiritual journey? But in other ways, where are you on this wisdom pathway, on your pathway of life? So I want to encourage you today, number one, in our 6-part series, choose your path wisely is the theme today. And we'll end with a memorable quote that I'd like you to put to memory. It's an easy one, just a one-liner, that I think will be helpful to you and very practical. Choose your path wisely. I'll tell you a couple of stories. I was lying on my back in an emergency room, neck brace on, looking straight up at the ceiling, cheating because I happened to have my phone with me, so I'd go like this and be able to and see, okay, what time is it? Oh, what's the weather? Oh, honey, guess what? I'm in ER, and in another province. So I was cheating, and every once in a while the nurse would come by and say, hey, stop wiggling around. We're waiting on your your CT scan, and you're moving around, and you got a neck brace on, and the bottom line is we're liable for what's happening to you in here. So that was more the issue than I was pretty sure I hadn't broken my neck because it had been about 18 hours since the incident, and I was still walking around moving. So in any case, they took their precautions. I understood. But I'm looking up saying, how did I get here? How did I end up in ER on my back, wanting to go to the bathroom? And the only way I was going to go to the bathroom is they're going to bring me a bedpan in the middle of like 18 other people. And we're in the breezeway between where EMS comes and where they go to the desk, triage, and then somewhere else. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'll wait. I'm not really interested in that experience right here in public, but thank you. And so eventually I said, when I realized I've been waiting 3 hours for a CT scan, I said, in 6 minutes, I'm so sorry, nurses, I was very disrespectful, any nurses among us, but I said, in 6 minutes, I'm going to stand up and go to the bathroom. And they said, well, we can't stop you, but we're asking you not to do so. And thankfully, the CT scan came. I waited another couple hours for the results of that, and then I was able to to leave because they did a physical on me, kind of checked me out anyways. And so I waited for the doctor to text me at the coffee shop to say, okay, results are in, you're good to go, but here's some precautions. It's like, whew. So how did I end up? You're probably wondering how I ended up there. Well, I'll tell you another time. Okay, fine. I was riding a mountain bike downhill with my son and daughter-in-law. Before they had kids, they were crazy, I was crazy, and somehow I got in front of my son. He's very daring, extremely physical, really good mountain biker. He's just good at everything, physically, athletic. And somehow I got ahead of him because we took this fork, and all of a sudden I was in front of him. We were on a mountain, hillside in Abbotsford, that it doesn't have a rated trail system. You know, on ski hills, you've got green, blue, black diamond, and then double black diamond. Don't go here unless you're crazy and have good life insurance. So these weren't rated. And somehow we got on a trail. They go, oh, I don't know, looks like a good trail. It's going slightly down and kind of not really going where to the parking lot where we parked. And we'd already ridden our bikes up half an hour up an incline that was 10 to 25 degrees of a lot of uphill to get to the high point. And then we were riding down. And I got in front, no trail signs, no maps, no rating system. Suddenly I came around a corner, and my bike was on a log. It had gone from ground, so here's the ground, here's the log, and it's dense brush. So I came around the corner, and my front tire's on a log that's this wide. And I'm thinking, oh, this is cool. Oh, there'll be a ramp at the end. There always is, right? So I hadn't asked a lot of questions. I hadn't thought this through. I couldn't see the end. Couldn't see around the corner. And as I got to the end of the log, it was evident that there was no ramp down. It was a drop. And it might have been a drop from, 4 or 5 or 6 feet to the ground that was on a slope. So we're going like this, off. This was level, and then down. Let's just say I wasn't well prepared for that. I couldn't brake. It was so high by mid-log to end log, I couldn't jump off either way, and I was going too fast. And I literally went off the end of it, not prepared well, with something called a hardtail, not a downhill bike, which has lots of travel, but a hardtail, which means there's almost no shock absorption when you hit. A little bit at the front. So I went down head first actually, from what I remember, and helmet first. Didn't brake, I don't know how, and my neck I've never had such a sore neck. In the middle of the night, I tried to roll over as I woke up, and I couldn't roll over. I went like this, I lifted my head, and I rolled over on the bed so that I could go to the other side. And so in the morning, I was like, I'm not even gonna have coffee. Thankfully I didn't, because I couldn't go to the bathroom in the ER, so I was so glad I hadn't gone to coffee first. Went straight to the hospital. So how did I get there? Well, we're gonna explore that. Another time, I forgot to ask a question. Leroy, what do you call it? This is not a trick question. What do you call it when cattle have stomped down in a pasture in really soft ground, and the hoof marks are about 18 inches deep, and then it dries? Is there a name for that kind of? No, just the whole area. I call it like quagmire, or have you ever heard of the word pugging? Is that a word? Because I looked up on Australia, and that's what they call it. Yeah, not here. So anyways, I want you to imagine an area that's so trampled that the hoof mark are about 18 inches in the ground. So I'm a rookie, and Farmer Greg has way too much confidence or faith in me and trusts me way too much. We're on quads, somebody else's quad, and okay, we're going to round up this cattle, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that cattle just follow one another, generally speaking, until there was an exception to that. But I'm going to be the hero, so I'm chasing this, whatever it is, steer, heifer, I don't even know. And I'm chasing it, and it's supposed to go that way. It's not. It went this way, and then eventually it would go that way, I found out. But so I'm like, I'm chasing this thing, and I've got new glasses on, and it goes through this thing and goes off, and I keep going, and suddenly I find myself on my back next to the quad, and the quad is like almost all the way over. And because I'd gone into that, something no human or quad should go into. And Greg came back and was like, what happened? Well, he knew what happened when he saw it. So I got back up, and we both had to somehow back that thing out, which is almost impossible. We got it. So let's just say that Farsightedness is not my strength, apparently, and apparently I have some short-sighted issues. So how did I get there? That's one question. You ever ask that? How did I get here? You ever see somebody else? We'll talk about that. So Proverbs 4, 5, and 7 puts it this way. When it comes to wisdom, sell everything and buy wisdom. Right? Jesus told a parable about this in the New Testament. He says there's some things that are so valuable, they're worth selling everything you have to buy that one thing. That's a principle Jesus teaches, and here it is back here. So what in this context, what's the one thing? Buy wisdom. Forage for understanding. Forage, like, oh, wow, going through the brambles and everything. I'm going to find that thing. I'm going to forage for it. Don't forget one word. Oh, details matter when it comes to wisdom. Don't deviate an inch. You're on a quest, you're on a search, you're foraging, you sold everything, you're going to buy that one thing. Okay? Don't deviate an inch. Never walk away from wisdom. If you find wisdom, don't walk away. She guards your life. Love her. She keeps her eye on you. Write this at the top of your list. He says it again. Get understanding. It's another word for wisdom. Throw your arms around her. Believe me, you won't regret it. Wow. What a powerful image. Wisdom is worth selling everything for to get. And once you've got it, give her a hug and don't let go. Must be something pretty valuable, hey? Well, wouldn't it be great, when it comes to wisdom and knowledge, wouldn't it be great if knowledge equaled wise choices or good decisions? Wouldn't it be great if that, knowledge meant that? Wouldn't it be great if age and experience equaled wisdom? Except that we know some old people who don't necessarily make wise choices. So apparently it's not just age plus experience equals wisdom. It'd be nice if that was true. It's not always true. What about if making our own mistakes equaled avoiding all future mistakes? Wouldn't that be cool? Sadly, we know that's not entirely true. What if watching other people's mistakes equaled not making them ourselves? Wouldn't that be amazing? Or what if calling myself a Christian or a good citizen or a religious person, what if that equaled making the right choices all the time? Wouldn't that be great? I know people who believe that. Oh, if you become a Christian, it'll be smooth sailing from now on, and well, that would be nice. Or what if seeing clearly the destination of other people meant seeing clearly my own destination ahead of time? Right? So imagine watching one of these police chases, and it's always from a helicopter, and it's like, and you're like, oh, that bridge is out, and they're going to get to the bridge is out. But when you're in that car going 140 kilometers an hour, you can't see the bridge that's out. You can't see that turn. You can't see that blocked road ahead. Why not? Well, because you're radar. This is called first-person view. First-person perspective, right? If you're in a role-playing game, you have first-person perspective or whatever it's called. Sorry, gamers, I don't know. All you see is this right here. Or you can go back behind yourself and see more of what's around you, right? And what's ahead of it. Or you could be above, whatever that view is. What's that view? Third person, or whatever. So you're looking down on your entire area, right? Or from the front looking at where you get the idea. Wouldn't it be great if being able, because you can always see somebody else's destination, right? Oh, I know where they're headed. You know where this is going. Why can't I see it like I see it in others, in myself? So have you ever caught yourself thinking about other people? She should have seen that coming. Why didn't she listen to good advice? Why didn't she ask more questions? Why didn't she pause before jumping into that relationship? Why didn't he stop before that big purchase and go, I don't know if I'm going to have that much money to keep payments up? What was she thinking? Why doesn't he learn from his mistakes? Have you ever caught yourself doing that? Or have you ever caught yourself thinking about yourself? How did I get into this mess? How am I in this lying flat on my back looking at a ceiling? Why didn't I think about the consequences? What was I thinking? You may not have been. If it's about a relationship or romance, you actually weren't thinking, because falling in love does not involve cognition. It's another part of the brain, right? Responding to crisis, often it actually isn't the higher part of your brain, it's the lower part of your brain. Somebody call it the reptile brain, the amygdala, and it's doing some stuff down there. I'm talking to a biology medical student here. She knows more about it than I do. I better be careful. Right? So that brain down there, that reactionary response, like, I'm in love. Love is blind and emotional. But somebody else says, well, yeah, I get that you're in love with that person, but you do see they're just so amazing. There's just everything good about them. She's so beautiful. He's so smart. He's so hardworking. And so how did I get myself into this? What was I thinking? How did I talk myself into this? Have you ever been honest enough with yourself to say that? Or I should have asked more questions. These are all great questions, but questions we often ask after the fact. So from Proverbs and elsewhere, we're going to look first at some tough truths to admit, and then some really welcome truths and principles that we can accept and embrace. So first, we just need to admit or accept or acknowledge some things that the Bible tells us about, and we know to be true from real life. Can I just say that? Not just because the Bible says it, but they're just true. Principles are principles. Proverbs are like principles. Proverbs and principles are true isms, and they're things that just generally work. I'll give you an example. People who work hard don't get hungry. That's a principle. There are exceptions. My uncle and aunt started farming the day they got married. They had 2 failed crops right off the bat. Their pockets were not deep enough to keep farming, so they got out of farming. So that's maybe an example of a principle that generally works. Generally, if you work hard, you're going to have enough to eat, right? But there are exceptions, okay? So let's just be honest about that. That in the Proverbs, King Solomon at one point says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging for bread. Well, that would imply that no Christian has ever starved to death, and that's not actually true. But it's a true ism. It's a true ism. It's a proverb. It's a general principle, okay? So we're going to go with principles. But here's some obvious things that you'll probably say, oh, Dan, I knew that already. Okay, first of all, we all have blind spots. We all have blind spots. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? So I have a blind spot, literally. I have optic nerve damage. I got it about a year ago. In the bottom half of this eye, my left eye, I have nothing. I have no vision. It's just black. Okay? So when I do eye tests, they say, click the button when you see this. Half the time, there's no clicking because it's like, no, nothing down there, nothing else, and click, 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 and then there's silence for a while, and then click. So I have vision up here, not vision down here. My cataracts make it worse to see up here, thus my prescription. And I'm in line for cataract surgery. But optic nerve damage, like that blind spot, we have those. It's just hard to know where they are. I remember when I first had my blind spot or had this optic nerve damage, I was like, I don't know, things seem kind of darker, and I keep turning up the light to try and read, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with this, and that's weird. And then I kind of looked straight ahead and like, oh, can't see it. Oh boy, I did not realize that I can't see things right here. You know, obviously optician and then ophthalmologist let me know why. Permanent optic nerve damage, a blind spot. So that's very physical, very real. But for many of us, we have blind spots that are tough to identify. So there's a path, Proverbs 16:25 says, there's a path before each person that seems right. It appears right. It looks harmless, right? The path in front of you, that looks great. I don't have any blind spots. I can see everything about the path, and the path looks really good. And then somebody says, what about this, or this? And you go, oh, yeah, I guess I never thought about those things. Why not? Those are your blind spots. We all have them. Every person has blind spots. Areas in which we're not aware, or not self-aware. Let's put it that way. So the sad truth is we even convince or persuade or sell ourselves on unwise choices or bad decisions. You know what? Like for guys, maybe, not just for guys, but for guys, we look at it, we're like, I really like that car, that pickup, that motorcycle. Oh, I really need that thing because it's got better gas mileage than what I have. And oh, the suspension and what I could haul with that and the people I could help if I just had that pickup. You have way more friends when you got pickups, just so you know, right? That's why I got rid of my pickup. I have friends with pickups, but no. I'm joking. I'd love to have a pickup, and I would share it. But we convince ourselves that something we can't afford, that's beyond our reach, that we don't really need, and you ask your spouse or other, do I need, you don't need that. Your neighbor's offered you his trailer. He'll sell it to you or rent it to you. You let it use it. You don't need that trailer. He said he'd lend it to you. You don't need that thing. Oh, but, and so I convince myself. By the way, when I think about vehicles in particular, I have to really mitigate that for myself. I really want that thing. I convince myself I need it. And then all I do is research on Kijiji and Marketplace and buy and sell. That used to be more of a thing for me, where I fixated on it. But I can convince myself into things that are not true, or I don't need, all right? Our oldest granddaughter, she's 13 plus now. But when she was 2, we took her to a grocery store. We were buying groceries for the family, and for her family, and us, I guess. And she was riding along with us we took her out of the grocery cart. She was walking along, and we happened to come across the toy section of the grocery store. And so we just did our thing, and we were patient with her first grandchild, you know. Oh, so cute. She goes over to the Barbies, puts one in the cart for us, and then gets another one, puts it in the cart, and we're looking at each other, and we're watching her, and third, fourth, fifth, sixth one, we're like, I need this. I need this. She's literally 2 to 3 years old. I need this. And we thought, oh, breaks our heart. How in the world are we going to get these out of this cart and back on the shelf? We're terrible grandparents, and this is our first grandchild, and how do we deal with this? This is so hard. Somehow, I don't know how it happened, but she managed to take them all out and put them back, and we didn't buy any Barbies that day. Her mom would have killed us. Her mom hates Barbies. Other kind of, dolls, okay. But in any case, we got out of that one unscathed, and our granddaughter didn't hate us. She may hate us for other reasons, but not for that incident. I need this from the mouths of babes, hey? Right? She didn't need 1, let alone 6. All right, second tough truth to admit, we need help making decisions. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust in God with all of your passion, all of those desires, with all that's within you. You can trust your Heavenly Father. Lean not on your own understanding or wisdom. Don't depend on your own brain. Your brain is not up to this, especially in finances and romance and wanting to buy stuff. You cannot trust your brain. You've got to trust God in this. It doesn't say your brain's always wrong, but your heart can't be. What's the big mantra right now? Oh, follow your heart. Oh, my word. If I hear that again, your heart is the worst thing, the least trustworthy part of your being for making decisions. Trust your heart. Follow your heart. Your heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Wow, I'm sorry. I'm just reading the Bible. But that's wisdom for today. We cannot trust ourselves. We want to. And by the way, the mantra right now is not just trust your heart, it's obey your heart. Do you realize that, right? Not only are we in an attention economy, I talked about this last week, where everybody's rallying for attention and spending money, advertising, getting your attention. We're also in a reality, a demographic, a socio environment in which if your heart tells you that something's true, you need to obey it. If your heart tells you that the gender and the DNA that you were born with is not accurate, if your heart tells you that, and then somebody says, I'm sorry, you were born this or that. But if your heart tells you to identify differently, you have to follow your heart. And if somebody comes along and says, I'm sorry, your heart's not trustworthy because this is your DNA. This is how you were born. This is what's true about you. Then an individual is being taught right now in our culture to reject external authority, because external authority can never be trusted. I can only trust my internal authority. Think about that, my internal authority. Now, before you get on the bandwagon of hating anybody who's struggling with gender dysphoria, that's not what this is about. There are people with genuine struggles, and they're really working hard. You may be one of them. Or whether it's same-sex attraction, whatever it might be. There's a lot of compassion. I want you to know that. But you also need to know that I struggle with all kinds of things. Like, I want to steal things. I want to rob things. I want to have things that aren't mine. And if I followed my heart, as opposed to the external authority of Jesus and his rule of my life, or the law, think about that. I'm sorry, you're an external authority. I'll drive whatever speed limit I want. Because my heart tells me to do this. You see how that works? How's that going to work, Constable Ben? Not so well. See, because there is an external authority, and that external authority happens to be God. And he designed you a certain way. He made you a certain way. He has plans for you, and he loves you. He loves you dearly. Your heart can actually says, I'm hated, I'm unloved, I was rejected. If you adopted at a young age, you may feel that I'm hated, I'm rejected, I'm not loved. Your heart's wrong. Okay? But your heart tries to be your authority, and it can't be your authority. So do not depend on your own understanding. Here's another translation. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Third, knowledge does not equal wisdom. Knowledge does not equal wisdom. The sad truth is there's no guarantee that we will translate our knowledge into good decisions or wise living. Otherwise, everybody with a PhD would also be living wise in every decision in their lives, right? Or anybody with a master's or a doctorate, they'd be, because they're knowledgeable. They have a lot of knowledge. That does not mean they can live wisely or make good decisions. See, there are 3 losing strategies that we'll explore another time. John Mark Comer puts it this way. He says, willpower is a terrible strategy for making wise choices or making good life, living wisely. Willpower, in other words, just try harder. Has anybody done that? Like you're trying to learn a skill and yeah, just try harder. Or I joke with people, yeah, I'm going to just try harder next time. Really? What if you're doing it all wrong? You're just trying harder in the wrong direction. Okay. Secondly, and willpower, 80% of New Year's resolutions are done by the end of January. So willpower doesn't seem to be working well for us in all areas. Some areas, yes. Of course, we've got to work at things. Secondly, Bible study is a losing strategy. I didn't say it was bad. It's good. We're studying the Bible right here, and we continue to. We're committed to it. But if you think you can think your way into holiness, think your way into righteousness, think your way into becoming a loving person, think again. I know people absolutely soaked in biblical knowledge, and I don't want to hang around with them, and you don't either, because they're not loving, they're not kind, they're not gracious, they're not compassionate. They don't know how to walk alongside you through hard times. If that Bible knowledge is not also mated with wisdom and Christ-likeness, Bible study alone. I was at a church one time, and they had a Bible study at an adult Sunday school, church service, Sunday night service, Tuesday morning men's Bible study, and Wednesday evening Bible study. Boy, those people must have been like saints. They must have almost reached Godhead, God status, right? Because, man, they did a lot of Bible study. And I said one time, they said, well, could you start another Bible study? I said, no. I said, you guys are Bible studying yourselves to death. You have all this intake. What are you doing in your community? What are you doing how are you loving your neighbor? What are you doing to live out? Just a percentage of what you're taking in through Bible knowledge. Bible knowledge alone will not make you a wise person. It makes you a knowledgeable person. Third, another losing strategy is a zap from heaven. This isn't as much popular in our circles, but in some circles, if you just have a God experience and he zaps you and there's this lightning bolt, and actually you've heard of a fire tunnel. They literally have people going like this on either side. and you walk through the fire tunnel and people are just like, "Oh," and praying over you and praying blessings over you, and you come out the other side, and what? You may or may not have overcome an addiction. You may or may not have become a wise person. You may or may not have become a godly person. But I assure you, you did not develop spiritual disciplines or habits in that fire tunnel. Whatever happened in there, whatever happened, did not translate instantly into godly habits or daily disciplines or wise decisions. Okay? Unless it implanted a new brain and a new heart in you. Okay? So those are losing strategies. Willpower, more and more Bible knowledge, being a zap from heaven. Number 4, tough truths to admit, we don't ask enough questions. We just don't ask enough questions, myself included. We don't ask enough questions of God, of others, of ourselves before making decisions. Proverbs 12:15 says, "The way of fools seems right to them before they ask any questions, but the wise listen to advice." That means asking, being receptive, being teachable, and letting someone else speak into your life. We don't ask enough questions. Fifthly, when we do ask questions, sometimes we ask the wrong questions. Ineffective questions, unhelpful questions, questions that do not lead us to wise living. These are great questions, right? Like, will this make me happy? Will I enjoy this? Wow, a 3-year-old can ask those questions. Will this hurt me? Will this hurt anybody else? Will anybody find out? Or can I get away with this? If I do it, will anybody figure out that I've done it? Those are common questions for human beings. It's interesting that the first two are related to dopamine. And so, for instance, if you do something, if I have one chocolate chip cookie or oatmeal raisin cookie or any cookies that my wife makes, if I have one, I get a big rush. Not only a sugar rush, but a dopamine hit. The dopamine is saying, "God, that's awesome. Do it again. Do it again." I'm like, "Yes, sir. I'm going to obey you. I'm having another one of those cookies." Now, that's a simple way. That's an ethical addiction. Could still kill me if I did that nonstop. My wife is helping me monitor that. She is my sponsor in this process with my addiction. Cookie Eaters Anonymous. And but dopamine, when you have a good experience or something feels good that you did something stupid and you're like me speeding with my dad's vehicle with friends in the car. Wow. Thankfully, God smacked me upside the head before anybody got killed or before anything bad happened. I thank God for that. He protected me. He protected me from so many things, my own stupidity. But when my friends thought I was cool doing it, well, I want to do that again. Why? Because they thought it was cool. Right? That's called dopamine. That's partly what's happening. That's not everything. But partly what's happening is dopamine goes in and going, "That was good, do it again." Right? So when we say, "What makes me happy? Will I enjoy this?" That's just chemical reactions inside of it. That's just reinforcing good or bad behavior. There's also good versions of this. When you help somebody and it feels good to help somebody and you see that they benefited from it, you go, "Wow, I want to do that again." We generally move towards things that have made us feel better or we enjoyed before. So you better choose wise things. Sixth, I mentioned this earlier, some tough truths to admit, we are short-sighted. We're short-sighted. So Andy Stanley has been studying wisdom and teaching wisdom to adolescents and young adults for about 35 years. And then he's also been studying adults who have made decisions and now they're living with those decisions. Now, like any speaker or preacher, I don't swallow everybody whole and anybody. I hope you don't swallow everything I say whole either. I hope you research and do your research. But here are some things he says about wisdom, about decisions. On the back side of a bad decision, it's not unusual to hear someone say this: "I should have asked more questions." Why? Because we know intuitively that the more questions we ask, the more information we acquire. That's good. Questions, more information, which should lead to greater insight and hopefully better decisions. But pausing to ponder a list of potentially disruptive questions is neither easy nor intuitive. Pausing to ask questions. I'm in love with him. Okay, like, does he know how to work? Does he have a job? Has he stayed in school? Does he do his homework? Does he respect his mom? Oh, don't confuse me with those questions. He loves me. He told me he loves me. Taylor Swift, in her song 15, says, when you're 15, somebody says they love you, you're going to believe them. That's called naivety. That's called the foolishness of childishness. It's naivety to believe that just because someone says they like you, that means you're going to be in a lasting relationship, or that person is a person of character simply because they say they like you or they love you. That's just the naivety. There are other kinds of fools we'll talk about, but that's just the naive one, okay? But when we don't want to pause and ask questions because it complicates our decisions, doesn't it? Right? Imagine you go to your parent or your child comes to you and they say, Dad, Mom, what should I do? Now, you probably know what they should do. If you're a parent, you're probably thinking, I know exactly what you should do. What if, rather than saying your child, well, what's right or wrong, or I'll tell you what's right or wrong, well, that's a good thing to know. What if you ask them, well, what do you think is the wisest thing to do? See, if a child or a teen has to go through that process of asking themselves questions like, what's the wisest thing to do? That gives them a lot of work to do. Because that's a harder question to answer is, will I get caught? Or does the Bible say it's wrong? I can't believe how many times I've heard people say, Pastor, does the Bible say this is wrong? And so if I say it doesn't say that it's wrong, you're going to do it? Because the Bible says nothing about spending too much time on social media. Oh, so the Bible doesn't say social media is overloading and that's wrong? No. Okay, well, I'll do it. That's a useless question, really. That's not a helpful question. The question is, how wise is it for you to spend that much time on your phone every day or on social media? Is that a wise thing to do? You should do some research on that. Why don't you come back to me after you've done some research and tell me how social media impacts you? Or how about news on your phone or your app or whatever? Is it wise to spend all of your time or much of your time on news or sports or whatever it might be? That's a wisdom question. That's not the Bible says not to do it question. It's a wisdom question. But we can be short-sighted and we don't think long-term or ask wise questions. See, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. When I was riding my bike down that hill, I didn't walk through that trail ahead of time. I didn't check it out. I didn't start from the bottom and come up the trail and go, oh boy, when I get down to this point, I'm going to have to avoid that log or I'm going to have to prepare for it. I didn't do that work. Pro bikers would have done that. They would have actually gone ahead and checked out and practiced before they did it. I just went full steam down without asking questions. That was my bad, and I paid for it. And that's what the unwise simpleton does, what I did. I am that simpleton. I went blindly on, and I suffered the consequences. They could have been much worse. I actually could have been paralyzed. It was very near that kind of spinal cord damage kind of thing. Wow. Next week, we're going to come back for the second half, which is time-tested truths to adopt, to embrace. We'll come back to that next week. It's the other half of the outline. As you've considered these challenging realities, and by the way, you're welcome to fight me on it. You're welcome to push back and say, Dan, I don't really believe you about number 3 or number 5. It's okay. You can take it out with me, but I'm just going to refer you to Solomon or the Proverbs or to God or to Jesus' words himself in the parables. I'll turn you back to there, and you can wrestle with that. I don't mind, and I'll wrestle with this stuff too. But I want you to turn to the last line in your outline, and this is this week's wisdom. This week's wisdom. I'll say it, and then I'm going to ask you to say it with me. We win or lose because of the paths we choose. Let's say it together. We win or lose because of the paths we choose. One more time. We win or lose because of the paths we choose. Jesus, you are the way. You are the truth. You are the life. We choose to follow you. As a matter of fact, the very first followers of you, Jesus, were called followers of the way. followers of the path, first century believers, people of the way, people of the path, the way of Jesus, the path of Jesus, the path of wisdom, the path of grace, the path of becoming more like Jesus. We long to follow you and to be wise like you, to be with you, to become like you, to do the things that you did, to make the choices that you made, to be wise, to make... Some of us are living with tremendous regrets. We look back in our lives and we think, how did I get here? I'm so in debt. I'm in this tough relationship. I've had multiple broken relationships behind me and I don't even know how I got here. I'm out of money, or I've put my money into this or that, or I'm so addicted, or I keep falling back into that thing and I don't know how I keep getting here. We acknowledge, as you would, Jesus, that these are not easy things. We don't necessarily flip a switch and it all gets better. But we do desire wisdom. Would you move within us so that we might sell everything and buy wisdom, discernment, understanding? Would you protect our young people from some of the terrible choices that we've made? Would they look to our lives like my friend in Kamloops who said, I looked 15 years down the road and looked at people a little bit older than me and I said, I see their destination and I want to choose a different path so I don't end up at their destination. What a wise question to ask. What a wise observation. And I pray that our young people would do that now, look ahead and say, how can I avoid that? Or how can I move toward that amazing destination as they look to the older people around them? And may we in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s model such humility as we share some of our story with our younger friends. Be glorified and honored in our midst. Thank you for your word and your Spirit who walks with us through this. In your